Hey everybody, it's David Fry from the Retro Wrestling Rewind. Well, you're asking, why am I by myself? Well, because this is what they call a tease. Coming up to tonight's program, we have WWF's Invasion 2001. Yeah, that's right, folks. Mike Steyer, the great Mike Steyer from Truth or Consequences, New Mexico tonight. He picked this show, and it is amazing. That's all coming up next. And we have a tease coming out of this break. It's going to be amazing right here on the Retro Wrestling Rewind.
238 pounds in the black corner. From St. Louis, Missouri.
Andre the Giant.
Gonna get his legs in on the bruiser.
Number one, the greatest WWE champion of all time, and in many ways, the man who made the title what it is today, Bruno Sammartino.
His opponent weighing 236 pounds in the white corner. From Van Nuys, California.
Welcome into another exciting edition of the Retro Wrestling Rewind. As always, I am David Fine of David Fine Media, the man to my right, the voice of our generation, the great Tyler Peters, and the man below us who seems to be changing. I mean, he must be in the witness relocation program because he changes each and every week. The great Mike Stiers, he's live from the home of Cactus Jack, Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. It's funny, guys. That's actually a real place. I think would think you would make it up, but I see it when I at work all the time, and I'm like, that is where Cactus Jack, Mick Foley, Mankind is from. Folks, I know you've been slightly disappointed in the last couple of weeks because, I picked a show, Tyler picked a show, but this week, the great Mike Steyer picked the show, Invasion WWF's 2001. It took place Cleveland, Ohio, July 22nd of 2001. It was actually, I will give you props, Mike. It was an actual good show. I didn't really want to watch it. I was like, but it was, it put me back in my youth, back in 2000. Actually, my youth, I had been married 2 years, so like 24. So I was not in my youth. I think that was like a couple of years after Tyler was born, but, because he's pretty young. And folks, you're going to feel young about this product. It's kind of this show is brought to you part by this, but we're going to play a promo coming up later on. It's a tease, and then we're going to talk about it. It's trust me, folks. Someone in your life and in your area will thank you. That's all I'm going to say. It's funny. In the pre-show before we got on there, I'd showed the guys the product. I mean, it's a great product. We'll be playing the promo later on, and it's a great. Not really sponsored, but it is sponsored by, and it's a big deal for everything entertainment. And I just want to thank them for letting us come on this platform and just make total asses of ourselves and have fun for the next hour, 45 minutes, whatever. Whenever Mike has to go to sleep, we may keep on talking because unlike him, he has a normal job. Like he has to go into work because he's a teacher. Oh man, I guess they'll let anybody be teachers, but that's beside the point. I'm sure he's a great. What do you teach? Geography?
7th and 8th grade history, U.S. history, and world history.
Nice.
I mean, how is it going with all the pandemic? Of course, I would assume y'all were back actually are you doing it? You're doing it via Zoom or Skype?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago we went back to in-home learning. And so I have to go to school, but then I can Zoom with the kids and we can do things there. So they're all at home. And then my kids in our house, they literally just found out today that they're back in school because I live in a different district, or they're back at home a couple weeks. So Ohio's getting hit hard.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know about Tennessee, but I know Georgia's kind of got low numbers, but they're still, it's one of those things. And we come on week and we know that You know, we're just talking hijinks and shenanigans and tomfoolery. It's wrestling. I mean, it's one of those things we hope that this time that we give you each and every week, and everybody on alleverythingentertainment.com, I mean, they got some great shows. They got the boardroom with, you know, I mean, you've been on a lot of the shows, Tyler. I mean, you've made your way across the network. I am just honored and privileged that, you know, that the big guy, Tim, or they call him Tank, has let us come on here and just, you know, kind of just, it's kind of like when we go to wrestling.
Sure.
It's not serious. I mean, it takes your mind off the problems that you may have or the problems the world had. I mean, since the last time we spoke, we have a new president. Of course, the current president is not conceding, but hey, he's in the WWE Hall of Fame. I'm just saying.
That's just true. Yeah.
I mean, the fictional, there's no brick, which I'm surprised they've not made one in Orlando. I've heard they want to, but he's in the WWE Hall of Fame. But I asked my son, I said, who's the president? And he goes, Donald Trump. This was before the election. And now he says, did Donald Trump win? I'm like, no, he didn't win. He's like, who won? I'm like, Joe Biden. He goes, so Joe Biden beat Donald Trump? I'm like, yes, he did. But I'm just glad that we can, at least for the next hour, can take your mind off the problems in the world. I mean, you may not agree with the politics, but you can always agree that Invasion 2001 has probably been the best show that we've picked in a long, long time. And Mike, what was your reason? Did you have a reason, or you just randomly picked the show?
Well, it took place in Ohio at one of my favorite arenas, which was Gund Arena, where the Cavaliers used to play. And I thought this was an important one for the history of the WWF, WWE, because this is the collapse of WCW. And as most people know, Vince bought WCW. And so Shane is put in charge of that. But at the same time, he also got ECW. And from this pay-per-view, Stephanie was in charge of it. So it was a whole storyline of the kids trying to wrest control of the WWF away from Vince. But at the same time, it's that Steve Austin and Vince McMahon back and forth, boss, underling, whatever. And so I think that this whole Invasion pay-per-view really showcased all of that in one fell swoop. And it had some good matches, too.
Yeah, I mean, Tyler, what were your thoughts? I mean, on the show.
I think Mike should be a booker. It was a great show, and I just want to say my favorite match was the bra and panties match. I'm just going to go ahead and put it out.
Jeez.
Yeah, that's my favorite. I don't care. It's a very technically sound, scientific wrestling. Mick Foley, I admire him as the referee. It's already going off the rails, guys. I got to admit.
And are you surprised that they don't have? Well, actually, I'm not surprised because of just the political correctness. Them not have. I am as straight as they can be, and I love that match. But come on, seriously, a bra and pants. I mean,
it's silly a little bit. Yeah.
I think that's why. I think that's why Mike picked this. He was like, a bra and panties.
Didn't realize that was in there. And I'll be honest, anytime that stuff came on, I didn't care, and I thought it was ridiculous. I thought it was a waste of time. I'd rather see the women wrestle like for real. And I think it was it wouldn't pass today. Not at all.
No,
but I felt it was disrespectful to like Lita, who could actually wrestle, and she's in there with a couple of, blonde bimbos almost who couldn't do anything. And so I always thought it took away from it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, it's kind of like the women's division, like when it was the Divas division on pay-per-views. It was what people refer to as like a bathroom break. I mean, even in the arena, people would get up and go get concessions or do whatever they had to go to the bathroom, maybe get merch because it just wasn't as good. But compared to AEW, which of course they're young, they've only been around a year. The women's division in wrestling entertainment is far superior. They have such a roster, but back then, of course, they had the special guest referee Mick Foley. I mean, he must have been in heaven. I'm surprised they didn't get Jerry Lawler. I mean,
I know exactly. He would have loved this match.
Oh, he would. I mean, but I want to get your opinions. Are you glad that they went away from that and made the Divas title the women's title, and made the women's division more legit? I mean, because they main evented WrestleMania. I mean, they've main evented a lot of shows recently. And your thoughts on that?
No, I'm glad they did. I was trying to be a comedian. That's why Letterman didn't hire me. But about the bra and panties match. But Mike's right. Athleticism, now they're getting treated more seriously, at least with Charlotte, Becky, and Ronda you were talking about at WrestleMania. So I'm glad they did, because then it became too much for the comedy purpose. And he's right. I mean, Lita and Trish became legitimate, women wrestlers. And it's a shame that they had these kind of matches. But that represented the time and era, whether fair or not, in the WWE, WWF then.
Yeah, I mean, it was just, I'm glad they don't do that anymore. I mean, every once in a while would be probably fun, but it's not like, I'm also surprised. It may be because of the pandemic. I mean, I know they had their own pay-per-view. Hopefully they'll have another one, because it did do really well. But the first match we had on the card was Edge and Christian. They were representing the WWF. They took on Lance Storm and Mike Awesome. Your thoughts on this first match?
It was a good match. You had
Was
two
it awesome?
solid. Yeah. And that, people forget Mike Awesome was actually a really good wrestler. And, he had a sad end to his life, tragedy. And but Edge and Christian obviously were one of the greatest tag teams that have ever been. And Lance Storm, great talent. And I just thought it was fun, and it really showcased both teams' talents.
Yeah, I mean, Tyler, what were your thoughts on this first match?
Yeah, Lance Storm to me was a great worker, and Edge and Christian were, I forget looking back. That's why I'm glad Mike picked this show, just how talented and great all these tag teams were. I came away impressed with this match. It just held my attention. There was not a move or segment of the match where I looked away or was distracted, especially with technology or phones. I was invested in this match, is what I took away from it.
Yeah, I thought it was a good match. I mean, I'm more of a Edge and Christian's fans now. I mean, I was not fans of them back then, but they've kind of grown. I mean, kind of like the Undertaker. I mean, he's from when he started to when he is now. I mean, I'm not a fan of his character now, because I was more of a fan of him when he started, the character, but he has gotten so much better. And I think Edge and Christian they're just two legends. I mean, it was definitely a good match to start out the show. It leads me to the second match of the night, which two referees wrestling each other, which, of course, you had Earl Hebner of the World Wrestling Federation and Nick Patrick of WCW. And the funny thing is, Nick Patrick's father was a wrestler. He was the assassin, what were your thoughts on this? It was just a kind of a goofy. I mean, of course, this is the first of two matches that Mick Foley was the special guest referee. I mean, what were your thoughts? I mean, it was a lot of good spots, but it's just weird having two referees wrestle each other.
Tyler, take this one, because he had a good explanation beforehand.
Yeah, I think this was more of a filler match. They part of an invasion angle. Let's just get the officials, everybody involved, because we don't have the Monday Night Wars anymore. We don't have really competition, so we got to compete within each other and really sell that. And you think about it, Hebner and Patrick, like you guys said, made some good bumps, because officials get trained to do all that kind of thing. And it was what it is. It's just that entertainment aspect that Vince was going for at the time, or at least creative, whether people agreed with it or not. And that's all it was going to be. It wasn't going to be like Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. And Foley being in there, then giving the Mr. Sacco to Patrick was awesome. Patrick, pointing at him, not mad that, he didn't let his buddies stay at ringside and help him out. And I got to say, Patrick was doing some pretty impressive bumps, even though you couldn't take it too seriously. It was just so funny. I mean, I was laughing at it, just getting a good laugh at it, really.
Yeah, it was. What were your thoughts, Mike? I mean,
well, the thing that stands out about this pay-per-view too that we didn't mention is that it was. I'm trying to think of the word for it, but you got invested in each match, because whoever came out on top got control of the WWF. So that's a good way to kind of reel us into these stinko matches because it mattered for the whole pay-per-view. And I can't think of another pay-per-view where you have something invested in everything, no matter the quality of the match, because whoever wins has the most wins, gets control of the WWF. So as goofy as this one was, I mean, it played into the whole thing that they were trying to do.
And speaking of goofy, before we go on for the rest of the, talk some great matches, I want to show you something that's, folks, it's goofiness, and just take my word for it. We'll be back in a second. Yeah, folks. Yes, folks. Your balls will thank you, and your balls will thank you for watching this amazing pay-per-view. Going from Earl Hebner, Nick Patrick, to it was a pretty good match. The WWF Tag Team Champions, the APA, Bradshaw and Farouk, take on the WCW Tag Team Champions, Chuck Palumbo and Sean O'Haire. What were your thoughts on this amazing tag team match?
I love the APA. I always loved them. They were so fun to watch. They're gambling, they're drinking, they're beating people up. Who didn't? And it was the Acolyte Protection Agency. So you go from them being Undertaker's acolytes to being the APA. It's like, okay, so they still ran with that. I enjoyed the match, especially because Sean O'Haire does not get enough credit for being an athletic wrestler. He had the look. I'm surprised that he did not do more as a wrestler because he had the talent, he had a look, and it was a good, fun match between four big guys. And Bradshaw murdered people with that clothesline from hell. Man, did he just bury people with that thing. And it doesn't always make sense that it's a clothesline finisher because that doesn't always work. I mean, you just throw it in a match sometimes, but when he hit people with that, you knew that was the end of the match.
Yeah, I mean, Tyler, what were your thoughts on the APA and the Chunk Palumbo and Sean O'Haire?
Well, I think Sean.
You say chunk.
Yeah,
I said chunk.
Hey, after that commercial, we're all distracted, right? But Chuck Palumbo, to me, if it wasn't for Sean O'Haire, I don't know if he passed away, after this at, that what year. But it was unfortunate, the whole Billy Gunn gimmick, that Palumbo got caught up in, because this was a tag team that could have held, championships in the WWE even longer. Mike just made another great observation point. Sean O'Haire had everything, all the intangibles, and it's a shame he was another one that passed away too early. And
2014.
Yeah, it was so tragic. And, Ron Simmons, Farouk and Bradshaw were just that brawling team. They just, the chemistry was there. That's a good word to explain that this match went off so well between these two teams.
Yeah, I thought it was a great show. A great show. It was a great show. It was a great match.
And they weren't particularly long. The first one was like 10 minutes or so, and then the rest were about 7 minutes. So it's enough to hold your attention, and it's not too long that it gets drawn out.
Right.
Yeah, I loved Ron Simmons. I think the whole damn gimmick, him saying that, that can get old a little bit, but I thought he was
still
great.
Love it.
And Bradshaw, John Bradshaw Layfield, he's, legitimate, like he trades stocks, and he's a smart guy, and he's, a savvy businessman, and he could be annoying, kind of like me sometimes, but he was I thought he was a great wrestler. I mean, he was a good champion. He was a good tag team champion. I mean, and just I think Ron Simmons. I mean, I think I like him better in the WCW when he was with Butch Reed and Doom, and when he was the world champion. But I thought this. In your opinion, do you think he got like pigeonholed into this whole that people are they're going to think him of the APA for the rest of his life? I mean, because that's where he got the damn gimmick, and that's where he started doing that. I mean, do you think that he's going to kind of be pigeonholed into that?
I don't think so. And this was also his later stages of his career. If you watch any of those matches, he's not in there for a lot of time. JBL is in there for quite a bit. So I thought this was actually a good end of his career because, people may know him as the APA because a lot of people are watching WWF, but, your real wrestling fans will know him as Ron Simmons. And, even beyond that, when he was an All-American football player too. So, I don't think this pigeonholes him, but I mean, it's a trademark, the damn. So that's what, when people see him, that's what they think of.
Yeah, I mean, your thoughts, Tyler?
Yeah, I think he just had such a great career that at this point he was having fun. I mean, you can tell him and JBL were legit friends. They were just having the time of their lives. I mean, going back to Mike's point of the gambling, those skits backstage, they were just, the creative was so organic and so funny. It just fit them. And, so I don't think it tarnished, JBL or Ron Simmons. And, hey, JBL, going to David's point, Eddie Guerrero, some of those great feuds with Eddie as the JBL character. I mean, that's what led to all that. I mean, that was the genesis of it. He just changed the character to more of the arrogant kind of Texas businessman from more the outlaw, drinking beer, having a good time at the bar. So.
Yeah, I mean, it was, damn. I don't know, I just had to say that. But the next match we had on the card was a singles match. Billy Kidman taking on X-Pac. Your thoughts on that?
I thought this was comparable to, I mean, you could almost talk about the Rob Van Dam and Jeff Hardy match at the same time because it was fun to see these single talented guys get some time to actually wrestle each other. And, I think people forget how good in the ring X-Pac was. And Rob Van Dam and Jeff Hardy, man, that was like, it was a dream match watching these guys do their, because the rest of the show is mostly like big guys doing their thing, throwing each other around. And these guys aren't the big top, draws, but they were some of your best legit wrestlers that you had on the card.
Yeah, I mean, it was, were you both the big fans of Kidman? And
Yeah, I mean, you know what? When he really started coming into his own, like right here and before that, in the last years of WCW, I started seeing more of the talent there because they were finally pushing him, giving him the go light, so to speak. So this was a great match. And did you guys notice and find it interesting, the reaction that it's supposed to be pro WWF crowd, but they were still booing X-Pac? I found that very fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely, yeah, it was weird. I mean, it's weird when you look back at this pay-per-view. This happens because, folks, we get pay-per-views that happen, from the 70s to mid-2000s. A lot of these wrestlers are dead, have passed away. And ended up because like Mike Awesome and Sean both died the same way. And I don't want to get your opinion, not on the death, but like, do you think that the bumps that the wrestlers take lead to some of these, tragic endings? I mean, murders, suicides, overdoses, and drugs. I mean, your thoughts on that?
Well, you can throw in Chris Kanyon too, because he's coming up in a couple matches here. Yeah, I feel like the three of those, at least two of the three, were fighting some demons that maybe weren't the CTE damage from all the hits and everything. Chris Kanyon struggled with his sexuality, and I think he almost died the same exact way as the other guys did. Basically at their own hands. You don't know if it's just like they maybe a failure of a career or whatever, but I haven't looked at like the science in terms of how their health was, but I just think they took their own lives for whatever reason and for whatever demons they were fighting.
Yeah, I mean, your thoughts, Tyler?
I think they just get so famous and they get so high profile that sometimes that pressure, just like with celebrities, I mean, even with wrestlers, gets to you. And, it's unfortunate, but, they do get involved in taking all these painkillers because you're staying injured. You're really taking some dangerous bumps. I mean, especially during this time, it was really involving, and we keep seeing that. And that's going to take its toll. So that's kind of what I gather that could have been the result. I'm not saying that was fully the result and cause of it, but you can't help but wonder if that's the case.
Yeah, and speaking of people taking drugs, and this is kind of talks about current wrestling. The current TNT champion Darby Allin, he lives he calls it the straight edge life. I mean, and I guess CM Punk did. I don't know if CM Punk actually did that. It was probably a gimmick, but
No, he did.
I mean,
I'm a Punk fan.
I love
great.
and I love CM Punk, and I hated the WWE when they kept on playing his music and Paul Heyman would come out, or they were teasing him so bad. And of course, he came back to that. What was that show on Fox? Not The Bump, but one of those shows that he was on, and teasing, oh, he's going to come back. Do you think he would ever come back, or do you think he's done with wrestling?
Any idea how old he is? He's about 42.
I think so. Maybe. Yeah.
I think he's done. I don't think he'll come back.
No, I mean, I mean, his wife has she's doing well, and it's one of those things. I was speaking of straight edge and the current TNT champion Darby Allin. I was talking to a bunch of people online, and I think I sent it to both of you. It's not a flub. It was a missed opportunity, but it was none of my partaking. I had Darby Allin booked on a previous podcast I did. He was coming into the studio. Then, of course, he couldn't come because his girlfriend at the time, who was also a wrestler in AEW for a while, Priscilla Kelly, she was booked on a tour in Japan. But now that I think about it, God, I wish it's one of those things, you live and learn, I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, if I could get him on, I just think that, do you think he is a throwback to old school wrestling, or do you think he's kind of more?
He's kind of more new school. I mean, he may have shades of old school, but I see him more like a modern wrestler. I mean, he's just a daredevil. I mean, there may be shades of influences there. Not saying that because he probably was a fan, but I just don't really see a lot of old school. And that's just me. That's just my opinion on it.
Yeah. I mean, and your thoughts, Mike?
I honestly haven't seen much of him in the ring. I know who he is, but I don't watch as much modern wrestling as you guys.
Yeah, I mean, see, folks, that's why this show is about wrestling from the past, because it's stuff that's happened. And it's stuff that's good. I mean, not saying that all wrestling now is terrible, but back then, I mean, it kind of brings me to a point that I want to, and I posed this question in the pre-show. Hopefully, y'all got your answers on the top of your tongue to tell me. Selena Vega, she was let go by the World Wrestling Entertainment allegedly because of her third party. Didn't want to give up her Twitch channel because she was making money from that. I asked you before the show started, who do you think in wrestling's past would have made the most money and the most impact if they had that avenue to make more money? Because back then they didn't. They just had they were always independent contractors, and they wrestled all over the country in different promotions and made money that way. Who do you think in Europe have and could have made the most money? Mike, you go first.
Shawn Michaels?
Yeah.
Because I think he had a much younger generation that liked him, or DX as a whole. But if I'm going individual, I want somebody who was popular both in the ring and outside of the ring, and the ladies loved him, the kids loved him. So that would be my guess.
Yeah, and we have a comment from the great Josh DeBoard of the Boardroom. He said The Rock. I
That's a
think
good one.
I mean, The Rock is. I mean, it's kind of funny how the World Wrestling Entertainment, they have their own film division, but he made it on his he's a legitimate superstar. I mean, he made it on his own. Who do you think, Tyler, in your opinion, would have made the most money? I mean, it could have made a lot of money on the side if they had that opportunity back then.
The Rock's a good one. Shawn Michaels. I would even say Cena could do it. I mean, any of those guys during that time as well could make a lot of money if they had a Twitch or Cameo. I mean, I could see it being very successful in the mainstream, especially.
Yeah, I mean, I think my person that I think would have been probably the biggest draw back in mid '80s was Roddy Piper. Whenever he was in Mid-Atlantic, and maybe not when he was in the WWF, because I think he kind of lost this kind of his luster. But when he was in Mid-Atlantic in the NWA, he was such a good babyface and such a good heel. I mean, he could have made so much. But it's one of those things that you live and learn, and it's also kind of funny how I was listening to it on a satellite show, a wrestling show on satellite. They were talking about. It was Lana has been taking a lot of table bumps and been going through a lot of chairs. They think that's because of her husband, who of course now works for All Elite Wrestling. He doesn't work for everythingentertainment.com. Maybe he will, but he works for AEW, and it's just kind of coincidental that she started taking a lot of bumps through the tables. I mean, do you think that's coincidence? And I'm going to get your opinion. Do you think since Selena Vega is no longer with the WWE that her husband, Aleister Black, will not be getting, because he's been wanting to go back to NXT because he's not getting any kind of push on the main roster. Do you think that will hurt him? And do you think they will just halter his push and maybe put him through some tables?
Boy, I didn't know that Aleister Black was her husband.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he is, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't think in his case, of course, I think he's talented enough, but boy, he hasn't gotten a push in about a year and a half for really any. They don't know how to use him. That's the big thing.
Yeah.
But
I
could see him maybe asking for a release because I feel it's kind of crappy for what the WWE did in terms of getting thrown through the tables. God, that's annoying. I wish they would not do that. She's not a great wrestler, and I almost feel like they're doing it on purpose, and I think it's pretty crappy. So I don't think it's very professional on their part. I mean, sure, it's getting her on TV every day, but who's it winning over? I don't think it's winning anybody over.
And Tyler, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, you're right. You write some stuff, some modern stuff for everythingentertainment.com. I mean, what's your journalistic opinion on this?
I think it is becoming just let's bury Lana, because they did it again. In case you guys didn't see it on Raw, I was watching a lot of it tonight. And it's like Nia Jax was. I know I spoiled it. Nia Jax.
Now I won't watch it. God, thanks. God.
I know. Leave it to me. The journalistic opinion ruins your shows. Thank you. But what I was going to say is Nia Jax was like, "Oh yeah, you're a part of Team Raw." Guess what, Psych? And here we go, a Samoan drive through the table. So they're not doing her any favors. Let's move on. I'm getting tired of it. My eyes were rolling, and it wasn't because of The Undertaker for the final farewell. Just annoyed at this angle. And Selena Vega, it was a shame. They were pushing her. She was finally getting on the main roster. Aleister Black needs to do like Finn Balor. They need to, if Triple H was going to, maybe do a good move for him, moving back to NXT, get him in a hot program down there.
Yeah, because like you said, Finn Balor. I mean, he is hot on NXT. I mean, it's interesting, and I don't want to go too much on modern stuff now. It kind of goes back to the old school. It's like in old school, you either if you didn't get over one place, you could move around a lot, and there was no like ironclad contracts. There weren't a lot of TV. It was a lot of stuff that you just did in small arenas, but I think Finn Balor, he has kind of found himself again on NXT.
Yeah, he has. I mean, they find, a resurgence in their, not only their character, their work. You can tell they get motivated. Some people, it works out like Keith Lee and Riddle. Some people make that transition, but you can tell from like Finn Balor, I think Ember Moon, who surprised everybody at their last big event before Halloween Havoc, she picked going to NXT because she wants to face the women there. She just feels like there's more of a desire down there, a passion compared to sometimes being overproduced in the main roster. That's been the rap. So.
Yeah, I mean it's just interesting, but that's for another day, another show that will be coming up hopefully soon here on the network. The next match we had, Raven, Mr. Johnny Polo, taking on William Regal. Thoughts on this match?
It was what it was. I don't know. It's the next three were kind of throwaways for me, and then he had a really good one, and then the Broad Baines match, and then the big one at the end. It's a mid card one, Raven, Regal. I like Regal. Raven, I never really cared about. I always thought he looked gross and dirty, but you knew that William Regal knew his stuff, and so he was fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, and what were your thoughts, Tyler, on this match?
This was a match. I kind of wish I had a fast forward button, just to be honest. I mean, because I'm with Mike. Regal was fun to watch, but Raven, I think his time were past him at this point because he was kind of going through the motions. Speaking of issues, I don't know what was going on, but it seemed like they could never get this match a flow going, and I'm glad it didn't last long. I'm just glad it was over. Just not one of my favorites.
No, I mean, I know you wanted to get to that bra and panties match, but
absolutely. I mean, I'm waiting for that.
Yeah, but we'll get to that in a little bit. I mean, I liked William Regal, but he's another guy that they brought back to NXT, and he's the general. I would assume he's still the general manager. I haven't watched NXT in a minute because there's just so much wrestling going on. And don't you think that his career has kind of resurgent, been kind of resurged, being on NXT and bringing him back? Your thoughts on that?
I think so. I think it's a great role for him. He's still intense, and he's really. I think the guy that if they have tryout matches, he's one of those people that are a part of it because he helps scout the talent for NXT, WWE, and why not? He's got such a great mind, and he brings that style from Europe that is so essential that we see a lot of wrestlers doing now. They are, we're really influenced by William Regal, and Triple H, I think, respects that, and that's why he's part of that staff. And his role is so important. Still involved a lot in segments, not overdone as far as his appearances, but when he's on there, it's always important part of the storyline what they're doing with the formula at NXT.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, what were your thoughts on him?
I think he has the respect of everybody because he's shown that throughout his career. He doesn't have the big accolades, but he was a blue collar worker for everybody. The guy actually had some skills in the ring, and he wasn't afraid to put people in their place. I think it was Bill Goldberg that he took long distance in a match, and he walloped him a couple times and showed him up quite a bit. So I have respect for Regal for that, and I think by having someone in that position who knows what he's doing. And has the respect of the young and the old. I think that really helps him out quite a bit.
Yeah, and I love having Tyler here on the show because he's an award-winning journalist. And I mean, it's speaking of that, kind of the halfway point of the program. If people want to watch your award-winning work, where can they find it?
You can find it on alleverythingentertainment.com. Just mainly have been covering wrestling on the side and able to do these podcasts with these very intelligent gentlemen. They're putting me over too much. I'm a voice of a generation now. I'm an award-winning journalist. I don't deserve it. You guys are too kind. And they fired me as a booker. I must have been really people were critical of my journalistic booking. So there you have it.
Yeah, I know. I mean, and if people want to, Mike, want to see and read your amazing work, how can they do that?
Well, I'll let Shark Boy tell you. Here's my
Whoa,
guy for the
Shark
week.
Boy.
I did
Cool.
Shark Boy. Yeah,
God.
I even did the hand painting right here. So
That's awesome.
someone challenged me, and I said, "All right, I think I can make a Shark Boy." And I've never seen anybody do one, and he's one of my favorites that I've done so far. I actually impressed myself with some of my painting job. I'm on YouTube. We're going to drop videos every couple weeks on both rings and wrestlers that I do. And all you have to do is go to YouTube and put in Mike Styer, Styer, and you will find me. And I try to be as helpful as I can to other customizers of LJNs and rings. And yeah, I'm not award winning though.
At least not yet. I mean, it's
I disagree. I think he is. Mike is very talented. I shared a link. I want people on Facebook to know I'm sucking up big time to you guys, so you'll ask me back on the show. Forgive me for Halloween Havoc 1995. Forgive me.
I mean, but he's also a Tennessee fan, so I mean, I'm just that's-
Ouch, yeah. Hey, it's a rough year for Tennessee. No, hey, there's no denying that. Hey, I don't even want to watch them.
I mean, would you rather watch a crappy view or a Tennessee Volunteer football game?
That's a tough one. That actually a coin toss, but sometimes I'd rather watch something else. But I got to stay true to the Vols. I got to be loyal. As painful as an experience as that is, a lot of times.
You have to be true to the ball. Oh, to the Vols. I thought you said to the ball. I am so sorry.
Goodness gracious! See, the Manscaped has got you all messed up. I said Vols. I thought I'm gonna have to really make sure I say that word correctly. Oh my goodness!
Well, I mean,
what's going on?
Hey, your Vols will thank you, right?
Yeah.
You get it?
Hey,
Your
that's a
Vols.
clever way of putting it. Hey,
Oh.
count on him. Yeah.
Speaking of clever, the next match on the card was a 6-man tag team match. It was Chris Kanyon, Hugh Morris, and Sean Stasiak taking on Albert, Big Show, and Billy Gunn. And I will have to give my condolences to the show. I just read online that his show, The Big Show, or whatever the hell it's called, on Netflix got canceled. So he's going to have to go back to wrestling, I guess. If he's watching, I apologize. I'm sure it was a great show. I didn't watch it. There's so many shows. But what were your thoughts on this award-winning 6-man tag team match?
Well, thank God that it was only 4 minutes and 23 seconds because I don't think I could have taken a second more. Here you've got guys, Big Show's a Hall of Famer. Billy Gunn is with DX. The other guys, because you've got Prince Albert as he came in, Sean Stasiak known as Meat at one point, and Hugh Morris at one point was Hugh G. Rection.
Yeah,
Wow, I forgot that one.
Oh my God! So luckily, this was a throwaway match. This was what they call a dumper. Is you put this on and then you go take a dump.
I love it.
I mean, as long as it was longer than 4 minutes and 23 seconds. I mean, good Lord, this was kind of like this was a match kind of like whenever the women used to come on. You would just walk away. I mean, it's one of those. I mean, now on the network, everything's streaming on the network. I would just click down and says next match. I mean, it's because it's going to be shitty. I am sorry. I mean, these guys got in the ring. I've never gotten to the ring. I mean, Tyler took a bump, really well a couple weeks ago at Coastal Championship Wrestling up in Nashville. But I mean, these guys were great wrestlers. At least that's what they told themselves. This match was just a snoozer or a fast forwarder. I mean, it was terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad it didn't last long. And to me, it was just a way to put the WWF guys over. It really, that's, I think, the whole point of the angle. Let's just get a win for WWF and go from there. And it's a filler match. That's all you can say. Just not one I'm going to be memorable or miss. I'll watch it once, maybe highlights of it, and I'm done. Let's move on.
Yeah, I mean, Hugh, I forgot about huge erection.
I did not realize.
Very topical for tonight.
Yeah, I mean, really, I mean, it is kind of funny. Oh God, huge erection. Oh my God. It's like, holy crap. It's like, oh my God. It's like, is this show just ever going to freaking end? It's like, no, it's not, because we're going to talk about manscaping, which is a great, amazing company. And then we're going to lump them into huge erection. I mean, Tyler talking about
Me.
keeping your eye on the ball or balls or the balls. I don't know. It's like,
Whatever
I mean,
you want, buddy. I'm here.
I mean,
Well, if you're trimming down there, you might want to keep your eye on them. So
Yeah.
I mean, well, I mean, I don't think anybody. I think we're going to be asked. We're going to be the first program to ask to not come back. I mean, they're going to be like, guys, just please don't come back. Just we're not going to give you the code to log in. If you, yes, it's like, oh my God. But let's move on from huge erection and Sean Stasiak to Tajiri taking on the human suplex machine. Of course, he is with AEW, and Brian Cage and that other guy,
Ricky Stark.
Ricky Starks, all that Ricky Starks. What were your thoughts? I mean, I love Taz. I mean, he seems like a short guy, but he beat the crap out of you, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, I mean Taz is a tough guy. I love the suplexes. You know, one of ECW's better wrestlers. I mean, with RVD and Sabu and all those guys and Dreamer. But Tajiri had some amazing offense. I thought, you know, this wasn't a bad match. It was what it was, but they had a hit going back to ECW. Yeah, interesting way to look at it. After I put it over, it seemed like I buried it in the same sentence, but it's true. It was a good match. Regal was wanting payback, so Tajiri missed Taz with the ref not looking. Interesting way to finish it as well. So,
Yeah, your thoughts, Mike?
it was short, but it was a fun match. Everybody got their spots in. Taz wrestling in the cutoff shirt never really made him look fierce. So I don't know when he got away from wearing his normal outfit, his singlet or whatever you call it. I don't know if he was getting a little bit heavier, and so he had to cover himself up. But both of them got their licks in, and two things. Number one, I love Taz's theme music coming in. Always loved that. Second thing, as Tajiri's green mist stuff, so disgusting. In the time of COVID, no. Stop spitting in people's faces. Ugh.
I mean, that's where it could have started. I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, it's kind of funny. Okay, so you know, with COVID, you know, the WWE's not having fans, AEW's having fans. They're distant, but it's just interesting. I mean, I know that they test the wrestlers, but I mean, WWE and AEW could be a major outbreak of COVID. I mean, because asymptomatic and not test positive and then go and get close to another person and give, I mean, what are your thoughts on, I mean, I know business is business and nothing's happened yet. Do you think if a major outbreak happened in WWE or AEW, they would shut them down and just say, you cannot do that anymore?
Who has the power to do that?
I mean, I guess
that would be my question. Are you asking whether the corporation will shut them down? Because I don't see Vince doing that.
no.
But I don't know
no
who
chance
has.
in hell.
Yeah, I don't know who has the power politically. Whether it's the state, was it Florida they're down in?
Yeah, Florida.
And God knows that governor's not going to do anything there. But that's politics aside. So I don't think they get shut down.
Yeah, I don't think they would. I mean, and your thoughts, Tyler?
No, just knowing how you just said it, Vince. I don't think, you know, as long as he can find some way or loophole, he's going to do it. I mean, he's just that way. And the same with AEW. I mean, they're just distancing. But I think with Tony Khan and Cody, because it's so much a part of their lives, even with a pandemic, they're going to try to do what they can in their power to make it continue, because you've got so much television they produce and content out there.
Yeah, and I've heard they want to add another show. So I would say, and they've signed a 3-year deal with TNT, and TNT loves them. I mean, I got a buddy who works for Warner Media, and he says that they love AEW. I mean, it's like one of their highest rated programs on TNT. I mean, other than the fact that they show Law and Order, SVU, all the Law and Orders on TNT and have marathons, that's about the only thing I think they show on TNT, and won basketball. But I mean, yeah, I don't see them shutting it down anytime soon. But the next match we had in the card, it was the first match. It was actually the only match on the card for a title. It was for the hardcore title. Jeff Hardy taking on Rob Van Dam. Your thoughts on this match? I mean, I'm a freaking mark for Rob Van Dam. I love him.
Oh, he's incredible. Just real quickly, that power bomb spot that Jeff Hardy did. I mean, I just take it away. No wonder they had so many injuries. These two guys were tough. I mean, they were risk takers, daredevils. They would sacrifice their bodies. There was just so much action, and it was so fun. You know, the spots in the crowd, you know, RVD leaping off, you know, even pushing fans away. It was just remarkable to look back at some of these matches and with the ladders. Just my takeaway is just what a match. I mean, hardcore not, even a regular style match, these two would have tore down the house, and that's exactly what they did. So I was just so impressed with this match between RVD and Jeff Hardy.
Yeah, I mean, your thought, Mike?
Clearly the best match on the card. And you knew that coming in from these two guys, two legends who can just get up and really do anything and throw their bodies around. I'm a huge RVD fan too. I just don't think he ever got the acclaim that he should have. He definitely has a lot. Wrestling fans know who he is, but he was just solid, such a solid wrestler, and did a great job. I don't know that his stoner persona did much for him to help him out there, but and I don't think Vince actually understood how to use him either. But his interactions with Kane when they had a tag team going too, that was really good. I enjoyed RVD stuff, and again, this was a match of the night for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely. I mean, I'm a big, like I said, a big fan of Rob Van Dam. I mean, he still wrestles. I mean, he's, I'm not surprised. I mean, it's one of those things. But speaking of your favorite match of the night is coming up next. The bra and panties match was I thought it was interesting. I mean, are you surprised that they had this kind of, I mean, I don't even remember like what led up to this match. I mean, I didn't watch any of the shows before. I mean, Tyler and Mike, did you do any research on what led to this built up of this climax of the bra and panties match?
Well, one, if they were flirting with the Hardy Boys, because there was what started out, Trish was at first feuding with Lita over that, and then it was Stacy and Tori. I think I'm thinking of it like as a teenager, like these were just some hot women, but it's a shame because they were great athletes, and I know it's going to sound funny because I'm just talking about how much I enjoy this match, but I'm like JR and Michael Cole. Michael's like, how can you even call this match? I mean, is Mick Foley not the luckiest guy in the world? He booked himself. I mean, that was genius in itself that Mick Foley would be the guest referee for this match. And hey, Lita actually did some offensive moves. I'm going to laugh. There was thanks to her, and Trish. But they went on to be amazing athletes. And, Tori and Stacy were more the managerial kind of accompany the wrestlers. They were just in it, for the eye candy. I mean, that's all you can say, all four of them, because they were all great. But it's a shame that this was that time in WWF where they were doing this, experimenting with bra and panties. But to say I didn't enjoy it would be a lie. And, I've got to be honest. I did enjoy the match, even if it was not a great wrestling match.
Mike, your thoughts?
20 years ago, I enjoyed it. As a 40-something father, not so much. It was very cringy in modern times. I would have preferred to have seen more athleticism. It just seems like they were, like you said, eye candy, and it was rough. It was rough in today's climate to watch this, and I felt for the girls. It was rough.
I mean, they obviously were going for something. I mean, I guess this was the time that they said, hey, this is what people want. And Vince McMahon, he will give what the fans want. If it's some stupid gimmick match, which they tend to have had. They had those a lot. They had brawn panties.
Yeah, they did.
They had pillow fight match. I mean, it seemed to always be commentating or refereed or announced by the King Jerry Lawler. I mean,
He loved it.
He loved the puppies, as he would say. I mean,
exactly.
it's just
And Vince was even booking himself in angles like that as the boss that was flirting with all the wrestlers, and that would be, you couldn't get away with that today either. But that was that era of the creative. They were pushing the envelope. It was something seeing him because he'd be there with Trish, and all that. Speaking of buying out WCW, they had that video of her backstage and Vince and her. It was just, it'd be uncomfortable nowadays. It's amazing what you can get away with back then.
Yeah, I mean, but Vince, I mean, he has a lot of dumb ideas and weird ideas. I mean, who remembers the time whenever he got into his limousine and it blew up? I mean,
Remember that? No.
I mean, come on, that was stupid. I mean, it's like, I mean, anybody could have found out that was not real because they had to have some kind of permits to do it. If you were a journalist like Tyler is, I mean, you would have found out that you had to have some kind of permits to blow up thing. It was just things like that. I mean, I think if someone else had been booking and didn't have it, well, even if Vince is not booking it, he has final say so. So if he doesn't like it, if it's not going to make him money, he's not going to do it. But I have a feeling that he had a big hand in the old bra and panties match. I mean, I could be wrong. It could have been someone else booking it at the time. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that could not. I mean, there are a lot of things that wrestling did in the past, like have different angles with different like countries, like the Soviet Union and Iran and and Iraq and all those other places. And I mean, heck, even the WWE once, it did not happen, thank God. I think it was right before 9/11, they wanted to have some kind of terrorist gimmick or something like that. Then 9/11 happened and they nixed that. I mean, it was just stuff like that. I mean, what were your thoughts? I mean, as a wrestling fan, those type of gimmicks, I mean, you're turning on the TV to watch wrestling, not to watch some lady wrestle around in barely any clothes. If you want to do that, you just go someplace else. You won't watch it on wrestling. But as a wrestling fan, what were your thoughts watching it? And would you want your family or your kids to see that? I mean, if you had I would want him watching that. I mean, it kind of gives a weird look for women and for anybody that you put them in that situation.
I would have turned it off, honestly, if I had kids. But at the same time, that's that DX time period, a little bit later. But they were showing their butts and very sexual stuff that was going on too, and that I didn't enjoy that either. But like you said, pushing the envelope, seeing what they could get away with.
Yeah, it was like a rock concert. I mean, speaking of that, Triple H would ask the women and they were doing it, pulling up their tops. I mean, it was risque. I mean, the Attitude Era that's what they got the edge on WCW. And nowadays you wouldn't think of that would be in good taste, but they could get away with things.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a different time. And to kind of cap off the program tonight, we had the WCW Coalition, WCW ECW Coalition, Booker T, Bubba Ray Dudley, Diamond Dallas Page, Devon Dudley, and Rhino they were with Shane McMahon, Stephanie McMahon, and Paul Heyman, taking on Team WWF, of course, La Champion, Chris Jericho, Kane, Kurt Angle, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and The Undertaker with Vincent Kennedy McMahon. Your thoughts on this 29-minute and 3-second match to end Invasion 2001. And then after this, I'm going to reveal what show we're going to be watching next week.
It was a long one. This was really, really long. But, everybody had to get their spots in, and it was the last match. I'm not sure why, Rhino was in there. I figured they could have had somebody else in there as well. But you know what? You had Stone Cold Steve Austin in there. So that's really all that mattered. This is our second guest for the night. My Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah, that is fantastic. I love that. Yeah, Stone Cold.
But it had, it served its purpose because you had to move the storyline across. I just thought it was really long. Almost. I did fast forward through some of it. I'm not going to lie, but the Stone Cold turn at the end is something that you knew. You kind of had a feeling that was coming. You're rooting for the WWF to win, and when it comes, you're like, well, I wasn't all that surprised, and you want to see what comes from that point.
I thought it was a good way to end the card. I mean, it was a 10 match card. Of course, they had a dark match. It was Chavo Guerrero taking on Scotty 2 Hotty, which I love Chavo Guerrero, but Scotty 2 Hotty not so much. But I mean, overall, I mean, what grade would you give this pay-per-view for this week?
I'd give it probably a B. I mean, it was solid. Whether storyline or not, some of the matches saved some of the not so great matches. And the only thing I would take away is, what you guys think about DDP? That was that stalker gimmick. That
right.
It was kind of weird, but that showed you how creative was and getting that feud with the Undertaker and stalking Sarah and then Deborah with Stone Cold. So they were doing everything right as far as not making you just assume Stone Cold was going to turn, but that's why it works so well. They were still getting that over that, hey, he's going to come and really help be pro WWF when he was not. But that's what I took away too in that match.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was good, and I've been teasing this the entire show. The show that we're going to be watching next week is Super Brawl 9. It took place. I will give the old rundown. It took place February the 21st, 1999 in Oakland, California. Some of the amazing matches: Booker T, Disco Inferno, Chris Jericho with Ralphus, if you remember him, taking on Perry Saturn, Billy Kidman, Chavo Guerrero Jr., Kurt Hennig, Barry Windham, Chris Benoit, Dean Malenko. Chris Benoit, Dean Malenko, amazing wrestlers. The Outsiders, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall with Lex Luger, and the lovely Miss Elizabeth taking on Conan and Rey Mysterio Jr., Scott Steiner, DDP, Scott Hall with taking on Rowdy Roddy Piper. And at that time, Rowdy Roddy Piper was the United States champion. Goldberg, Bam Bam Bigelow, and the main event for the WCW Heavyweight Championship, Hollywood Hogan as the champion taking on 100-time world champion Nature Boy Ric Flair. Your thoughts on this amazing card and this amazing show that I picked for next week?
Sounds like fun. I like the WCW. I didn't watch much of it when I was a kid, but going back to it, it's almost like I'm seeing it literally seeing it for the first time, I guess. But I know all of those guys, so that sounds like a fun card. Yeah, I mean, and your thoughts, Tyler?
I think it'll be a great show. I mean, I was actually watching Nitro a lot. Had the Nitro parties. They weren't good enough to film them and send them into WCW, but that was that time. It's cool. Just a lot of great talent you just mentioned. So I'm looking forward to talking with you guys about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be amazing. And what's amazing? The thing that is definitely amazing. And I know you've been waiting for me to play this again, but you know what? We're going to end the program. Are we talking about the Vols or the Balls? You figure it out. We will see you next week where we cover Super Brawl number 9.
£38 in the black corner. From St. Louis, Missouri.
Andre the Giant.
Gonna get his leg set on the loser.
Number 1, the greatest WWE champion of all time, and in many ways, the man who made the title what it is today, Bruno Sammartino.
His opponent weighing 236 pounds in the white corner from Van Nuys, California.